Welcome to the Civic Brief with Dr. Isaiah Ike Wilson III, where complex issues meet everyday lives. Now, let's begin.
Let me begin with a moment. It's 1944. A young black pilot trained at Tuskegee prepares for another mission over Europe. He flies escort for American bombers, protecting crews who, not long before, questioned whether men like him belonged in uniform at all. He knows two things simultaneously. First, that he is fighting for a nation that does not yet fully recognize him as equal. And second, that his performance, his excellence, may help force that recognition into existence. This is the paradox. He's not just fighting a war abroad, he's participating in a transformation at home. And that duality, war outward, transformation inward, has never left the American military. What I want to suggest today is this. The United States Armed Forces are not just instruments of national defense. They are among the most consequential institutions of social experimentation in American history. They are, whether we acknowledge it or not, silent battlefields where questions of identity, citizenship, legitimacy, and belonging are continuously contested, negotiated, renegotiated, and operationalized. And importantly, these internal evolutions are not peripheral to the military effectiveness. They are constitutive of it. Now, we can trace this dynamic across American history. The Army precedes the Constitution. It is, in many ways, the first national institution, tasked not just with fighting, but with holding together a fragile, pluralistic experiment. From the beginning, the question is implicit. Who is America, and who fights for it? The inclusion of Black soldiers, United States colored troops, reshapes both the war and the meaning of citizenship. Military service becomes a claim to belonging. But that claim remains contested long after the war ends. Here, the contradiction sharpens. Victory abroad against fascism, victory at home against racism. The Tuskegee Airmen, the 442nd Regimental Combat Team, women entering industrial and auxiliary military roles. These are not just force expansions. They're stress tests of that very American idea. President Truman's 1948 desegregation order, Executive Order 9981, does not follow society. It actually leads it. The military becomes one of the first major American institutions to operationalize integration. And importantly, it works. Not perfectly, not immediately, but measurably. Now we see a different dynamic. Questions of gender, sexuality, identity, and culture become central. From don't ask, don't tell, to full inclusion of LGBTQ service members. From women in support roles to women in combat arms. Again, the military is not insulated from society. It's actually absorbing, refracting, and institutionalizing social change under conditions of operational stress. So, what does this tell us? What might it tell us? I think it tells us that the United States military is not simply adapting to social change. It's processing it under pressure. And in doing so, it actually performs a very unique function. It converts social diversity into operational capability, or at times, struggles to do so. This is the civil-military compact in real action. But this process is not frictionless. There's always a tension between cohesion, things like unity, discipline, shared identity, and pluralism, difference, diversity, evolving norms. Too much rigidity and the force becomes brittle. Too much fragmentation and cohesion erodes. The military's challenge, therefore, is not to eliminate this tension. It's to manage it productively. Let me sharpen this point with some empirical grounding. Now, this next slide draws from political scientist Jason Lyle's work on what he calls divided armies. In his book, Divided Armies, Lyle examines a simple but powerful question. Do militaries that reflect deep internal social divisions, ethnic, cultural, political, perform worse on the battlefield? The conventional wisdom would suggest yes, that diversity fragments cohesion, that difference undermines effectiveness. But what Lyle finds is more nuanced, and I would argue more instructive. Armies do not fail simply because they are socially diverse. Frankly, quite the contrary. They fail when diversity is poorly managed, politically mistrusted, or institutionally segregated. In fact, under certain conditions, diversity can enhance adaptability, intelligence gathering, and operational effectiveness, particularly in irregular and complex environments. But, and this is the real critical point, when soldiers do not trust their institution, when identity cleavages are reinforced rather than integrated, when legitimacy breaks down internally, well, performance suffers, and sometimes catastrophically. So the issue is not diversity itself. The issue is whether the institution has the capacity to convert diversity into cohesion, or whether it allows diversity to harden into division. And this brings us right back to the central tension we just discussed. Cohesion and pluralism are not opposites to be traded off. They are variables to be integrated intentionally, institutionally, and continuously. Because when that integration fails, what we don't just get is social friction. We actually get something much worse. We get strategic vulnerability, which brings us, frankly, to today. We are now in a moment, I would offer, where this longstanding dynamic is being politically recontested. Recent executive actions and political directions, particularly those framed around quote unquote anti-DEI or anti-woke agendas, suggest a retrenchment, a desire perhaps to simplify, to return to a perceived, wanted, more singular, less contested conception of military identity. But here's the risk. If the military ceases to reflect the society it actually serves, if it retreats from engaging the complexity of that society, it risks losing something far more important than internal harmony. It risks losing legitimacy. And legitimacy, history shows, is not a soft variable. It is a form of power, hard power. It is what allows a diverse force to actually cohere. It's what binds citizens to institutions. It's what sustains resilience over time. The American military has endured for 250 years, not because it avoided social change, but because it absorbed it, struggled with it, and ultimately incorporated it into its institutional DNA. So, the question before us is not whether the armed forces should engage these issues. They always have. The question is whether they will continue to do so in ways that actually strengthen the nation they serve, or in ways that quietly begin to pull it apart. Thank you for the time. For Nation Not Self. Cheers.
Thanks for tuning into the Civic Brief. Got questions, insights, or ideas? Join us at thecivicbrief.com to continue the dialogue. Subscribe, share, and be part of shaping the future, one brief at a time.